Greetings and salutations, my tasty ones. Welcome back. So this session was, don't get me wrong, a lot of important things happened to it, but it was a little bit of a post-adventure wind down, and then also a ramp up towards the next adventure. There was a lot of seeds that were planted, a lot of RP was had. I got to introduce a lot of characters, and which the campaign actually doesn't need, because hot damn, does it already have a lot of characters. As a matter of fact, for my prep work for this session, what I ended up doing was I went and made, what did I call it? Some kind of character Bible thing. There we go, yes. I called it the Stage Character Bible. And I went and wrote down a bunch of notes on all the things I've name dropped so far, and mentioned in various NPCs I plan on adding and whatnot, and a list of miscellaneous names. So this includes stuff like those 3 rats that were seen on the way back home. They are surviving members of a group of bandits called the Sleight Hands. I don't think that'll ever come up or matter, but just some trivia for you. Vanna and Tavi were some town guards I got to introduce. They probably won't be important, but you never know. They do have names now and little entries. I finally got to roleplay Gareth, which is something I've been very excited for a very long time, because I have used the name before in another campaign that a friend ran, and it's not... The campaign itself was pretty good, but I got bored of it. It just wasn't for me. But I thought, hey, I like this name. I like the idea of the Girth-wide clan and about dwarves having ridiculously silly names that don't translate well into common. And so I stole that and stuck it in this campaign. And so I finally got to play this new, improved, revamped version of Gareth. It's a lot older, a lot wiser, less reckless. I had a blast playing him, interacting with Kovgum, and then later on with Thord. It was just a lot of fun to play this mentor type character that's a little bit off kilter and a little bit too into the super violence. We got to see what happened to Smoothik. I was expecting him to die. There are many ways in which he could have died. Had he kept him in the backpack, they would have found him and probably killed him immediately, or at the very least it would have resulted in him going into prison as well, but then they would have been suspicious of Thord. So Thord, playing it straight from the get-go, made it so that I didn't have any reason for any of the NPCs to be suspicious of him. So that actually was a fantastic play on Jozo's part of not sneaking the backpack goblin in and just walking in as though he was a prisoner that was going to be refit and with morality and brought back out into the world to be of use to the party. I don't exactly know what he was trying to go for there. But regardless, him coming clean with Smoothing and bringing him in from the get-go was great. I really liked the scene with Gareth where he's like, that goblin dies. And and then the goblin sure didn't die, so he lied to his uncle, which makes me happy. I don't think it'll come up anytime soon. I don't currently have any plans of zone of truth, Jozo, did you kill the goblin or not? Blah! No, that's not gonna be anything that happens immediately, if at all. It might never happen. Who can say? But I just think it's interesting how when he had to choose between the life of a monster and lying to his uncle, and keeping a vow to his uncle, he chose the life of a monster over keeping a vow to his uncle. So that to me says a lot about Thord's character, and that his relationship with with Gareth might not be as solid as I had expected it would be. So it leaves me with some wiggle room on top of that. With Kov delivering that letter, it lets me start introducing some of the politics. Where is that name? Give me a second. Hain. It was Hain something. Hape Harpman. Let me introduce the Harpman family. And I'm excited to see how that dinner works out. It's a week down the road, so I assume they'll go on an adventure, maybe 2 before then, unless they decide to go in for some downtime. which honestly they certainly could. Like, going to Ross might end up being downtime. I don't currently have any big encounter plans if they go to Ross, so that'll probably just be like a little bit of time off. However, while they're away, some events might happen in town, so that'll be fun. I didn't have enough time to do as much with Steadfast as I wanted. I had planned to have some goons come into town and have an encounter with the party. We ran out of time for that, so I skipped it. Those goons will still be coming into town, and whether or not the party's there to deal with them, we'll see what happens. But at the very least, I am very glad that they did question Samuel and that he was able to effectively give them like the full story, or at least his full story. Not of course Steadfast story or any of his goons' story, but it was a way for me to introduce Steadfast and one minion whose name I forget. Let me go see. Tibra. It was Tibra. Was the other survival of Green Ford, I think it was. Yes, Green Ford. I should stick with my gut more often. But yeah, being able to introduce the Church of Sierros and Steadfast and name drop one of the goons. I think that we're setting some things up nicely here, and I'm really excited to see what happens and what the party does in response to this, if anything. Of course, there's also those side quests that they've currently ignored. I honestly, I think it'd be more fun if they ignore the Glimmergraves one in favor of the Cleric one, because it just fits better with where I'm going here. While I certainly could fit Glimmergraves into these various organizations and villains that I'm having crossover and challenge the players with, I think it'd be fun to keep it more of like small town problems, at least for now. But if they go to Glimmergraves, it's whatever. Those things happen. But I really hope they go down to the basement so I can do that dungeon, because if not, then if they wait too long, those minions of Steadfast, they will just find the Patron of Unlife, and he'll obtain it, and it'll be something that the party will have to deal with in the future, and that scares me, because the Patron of Unlife being in capable hands above ground is something that can destroy my setting, and I'm prepared to do that. That's why you introduce elements like this, to watch them destroy your setting, and no setting can go throughout a campaign completely unscathed, but still, I'd much prefer the party be in the loop rather than this come out of left field, you know? Where if the party has this, the Patron, and then there are people that are being sent to go and try and steal the Patron from them. At the very least, if they do end up losing the Patron to Steadfast, they know the origin of the Patron, they know what it wants, they've encountered it before. Perhaps if it comes to a roleplay scenario, they have some sway with the Patron. Probably not, though, because I don't see them offering the Patron what it wants anytime soon. But anyways, it does set things up in an interesting way. So yeah, they're probably gonna go do one of those quests or go to Ross next session. I've got that stuff already prepped. Don't have any problems there. Something that did happen in between sessions was Dubis mentioned Kov being surprised that Thord spared the goblin and set up a camp, because that's not what Thord said he was going to do, and he and Artem's character Gale both expected that Thord was just going to kill the goblin, and that was for realsies. And I brought up that fact that, hey, there are witnesses now that you didn't kill the goblin, that being your two party members. And Jozo's like, wait, no, I don't think that Thord would have asked them to come with him. That I think that Thord is going to keep Smoothwick a secret. And if he had asked them to just wait there for him to return, would they have? And at that point in time, Artem had left the call already, because he's a busy boy. But Dubis was still there, and Dubis was like, yeah, he would have stayed behind and made small talk with Vana. So now we know that at the very least, Kov doesn't know that Smoothwick is still alive. Kov thinks he's dead, so that's one loose end taken care of. I still need to talk to Artem about him and Gale. as to whether or not Gale stayed there or if he went to go and bury the body, whether or not Gale would have been suspicious of that and followed him around, or if, because like he could reasonably say that he was suspicious and followed him out. There's more than enough evidence towards that. But he might also feel like, no, that would be kind of cheating and putting my nose where it doesn't belong, that kind of thing. So I could see Artem playing that either way. But potentially, there either is a witness or no witness. On top of that, I don't know if it'll be coming up next session or the session after, but for the Crimson Anvil campaign, we are going to be adding a fourth player. Our good friend Vashel will be returning to us, and he's got a new mic, and I've banned him from playing the same edgy cunt character that he's played 4 times in a row, so I think it'll be interesting to see him kind of branch out and try and fill some new shoes. This will either be a great addition to the party or a very bad addition to the party. We'll just have to wait and see. It seems as though he's playing some kind of magician. I think he's playing a wizard. I'm not sure, but at the very least he's playing some kind of entertainment-based character, and that's apparently very emotional, which he says that that's not what he's used to playing, is that his edgy characters tend to be emotionless, which I would disagree with, but that's his perception of the character, so we'll just have to wait and see. So I do want to actually go into some of the things I wrote for the character Bible, kind of give you some behind-the-scenes nonsense. Oh, okay, well, one last thing before we get into that. The Reens family, Tim and Darren Reens. We did get to go into them and their Dawnscale organization a little bit, talking about the god, the dragon god that Darren is trying to slowly spread word about so that they don't get smote immediately by the dwarves and humans for trafficking in this no doubt illegal information. So that was interesting seeing Ka's reaction to that, and I'm glad that he actually does seem to be keeping their secret. We'll see whether or not that stays true in the next session, but at least for now, the secret is being kept. Okay, so let me go into Stead's... Sorry, I call Steadfast Stead, because originally when I was playing the character as a player character, his name was Stead, and I've decided that it was short for Steadfast post playing the character now, and so now I sometimes call him Stead, and I think I'll keep with that pattern in all honesty, because like it makes sense. I like calling him Stead for short. It's fun. But anywho, Stead knows about the Patron of Unlife being there because he has a divination wizard, who I did go and write a little bit about. Not all casters, but some casters do like to protect their name. They believe that names can give power, and Milk-Eye is one such divination wizard. So Milk-Eye goes by Milk-Eye. He has a good eye and a bad eye, and that bad eye, well, it's blind, hence the name Milk-Eye. And Milk-Eye can, if he concentrates, can receive visions through this clouded eye, and that's what he used to get the vision of the weapon that he believes will allow his friend Stead to garner forth an army. There we go. Both A words, but vastly different A words. And so Milk-Eye now exists. We mentioned Tibra already. I'm toying with the idea of having there be 3 mooks that come into town. Tibra was going to be one of them, actually, and I think it was going to be interesting to see if things happened to line up perfectly so that Samuel and Tibra interacted with each other. I think that would have been a fun little scene, especially if it was before they got the whole Steadfast story out of Samuel. It still certainly could happen. And then if I don't use them as minion names, I certainly will recycle them because I like these names. But the other 2 minions I was gonna name Darius and Desmond, and they were going to claim to be followers of the god of life, Ceros, and they effectively are like the type of rough characters that are itching for a fight. That, like, if the players did anything to remotely insult their honor, they would request a special kind of duel to the potential death, that they be left there to bleed out and see if they truly are worthy of life or not. And that was an encounter that I didn't have enough time for, and so we'll see if it comes up again. The other thing, Prince Hain Harpman. He is the youngest brother of the former king, and so while technically he is a Viscount Prince Hain Harpman doesn't sound right. Prince Viscount Hain Harpman doesn't sound right, so I think that more often than not we'll just call him Prince Hain Harpman, although he does hold an equivalent title as Gareth in terms of land, where he is still under the rule of Count, not Aiken, Hugard, there we go, Hugard Shatterscale, but that he didn't. He's a noble because he's the youngest brother of a prince, and so when it comes to divvying out land and whatnot, they like to give those who are already nobles priority. And so that's why, despite being a prince, him being a younger prince doesn't mean that he's in like any kind of line for the throne, really. So they've kind of just shoved him and his land over here, and he'll just sit on it, and he's eager to prove himself, though, and he sees this dwarf among the human nobility to be an easy target for effectively bullying, that he very much wants to go and oust this villain masquerading in fancy clothes. Who does this dirt digger think he is? That kind of an attitude towards Gareth, and I think it'll be interesting to see how the dinner scene plays out when Hain comes to dinner and we see them interact. See if they can break bread, that kind of thing. But maybe nothing will come of it. Maybe a war will break out. Who can say? The other big thing I did was I added a little bit to Hugard Shatterscale, Aiken Shatterscale, and I did now name the middle son Alden Shatterscale. So Aiken's son Alden is not his heir, because Hugard is his heir, which was Alden's son, and Aiken's grandson. Now, the reason it skipped a generation was because Alden betrayed his house while besieged by a rival house. He snuck out and offered to sneak in a contingency of their units into the keep so that they could assassinate Aiken and end the siege early with minimal casualties. He asks only that he be put in charge of the keep and kept effectively in power. But he'd be effectively saving lives and offering himself up as a puppet for this rival house, which isn't a bad plan, in all honesty. It's pretty typical noble intrigue. Of course, Aiken, being an old war veteran, didn't take the assassination attempt laying down. He kicked their ass and discovered this treachery and sent Alden away into prison, where perhaps he is still there, although there are rumors that he has since escaped and that a doppelganger of sorts has been arranged to sit in his cell for him, and that he plots revenge. And we'll see if anything comes of that plot. But that's just something lurking in the background that might not matter to the party, but it certainly matters to Hugard, who now, without his grandpa and him being still fairly young, now has a lot of responsibility on his shoulders, including a vengeful father, who may come and try and claim his throne. So that's just something, a little bit of background lore I wanted to flesh out. And I don't remember if I brought it up in session or if it was just on one of my servers, but I did bring up that there is a rumor that Hugard Shatterscale has a goblin as his court wizard. That is both true and false. It is false in that he is technically a human, or at least he was a human, but true in that he currently has the appearance of a goblin. Here Here, let me just read my notes. That'll make my life easier. He is a man with the body of a goblin and the mind of a man. The goblin mind was preserved, but is suppressed. And when he thought of a new wizard name for this new entity, this new union, he decided on Nubby, and perhaps that was the goblin influence, perhaps not. Of course, his real identity could be confirmed through records, that being the man Norbert Aegis Weaver. There we go. Norbert Aegis Weaver, who now goes by the name Nubby. There was the goblin formerly known as Larkley, once bumbled into Norbert's tower in search of shinies and food. And having downed many different experimental potions, when Norbert arrived to apprehend the goblin, they fused upon physical contact. So that's just a very easy way for me to put like a little bit of extra controversy there, in that he has a goblin as his court wizard. Technically not, it's technically a human, but it has the appearance of a goblin, and they can't prove that it was once a human, or that it's not the goblin driving this new shared body. They can't prove any of that, and it goes by Nubby, and it looks different, so perhaps it is only pretending to be Norbert Aegis Weaver. Perhaps it is indeed some new evil dark entity. There's all sorts of conjecture that people could spread about this character, should these rumors be substantiated. Tombstone's having its second session tomorrow, because this campaign diary sure is going up today on Saturday. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for it. We're going to finish off the dungeon, this weird, warped, multi-planar, nonsensical gingerbread house dungeon. I have started in on my work on some of the big players in the mega dungeon beneath the city, and it depends on some dice rolls and some decisions on the player's side, but there is a possibility that they will meet one of these big players, and I think it's gonna be really interesting if that does end up happening, because you know what, I've changed my mind. I'm not gonna say anything. We're just gonna see what happens, I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully, and if not, then I'll see you sometime next week during whatever the next campaign diary is. I've also got, most likely, some Magic the Gathering content that should be coming up pretty soon. So keep an eye open for that. Other than that, you have a good day. See ya!